Ukraine's drones strike missile and artillery arsenal, oil depot in Russia, sources say. That headline, hitting you on January 6, 2026, it carries a tremendous weight of strategic consequence. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. I'm Alex. Join me with Arya for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, well, what our sources say is the most critical turning point yet in the drone war. We're talking about strategic strikes deep inside Russia that are changing the economics and, the very logistics of this conflict.
It really is a seismic shift. And for this deep dive, we're zeroing in on sources detailing the latest Ukrainian deep strike ops, specifically from around January 6th.
Okay.
Our mission today is to really get into the why and the how behind these strikes on Russia's military and industrial backbone. We're looking at a sophisticated new campaign and a rapidly evolving technological arms race.
Let's unpack that right away, starting with the breaking news. The Security Service of Ukraine, the SBU, their sources confirmed that, quote, explosions rang out all night.
All night.
So for you listening, what exactly were these high-value targets? Our sources say they were hit by long-range drones operated by the SBU's Alpha Special Forces unit.
Well, the sources confirmed two particularly high-value targets, and they really speak volumes about the strategy here.
Go on.
First was a major Russian arsenal near a town called Nea in Kostroma Oblast. And what's crucial here is that this site is potentially the 100th arsenal of the main rocket and artillery directorate, the GRAU.
The GRAU. Hitting a 100th arsenal, that's not just a tactical win, is it? I mean, that's a strategic blow to their entire logistics system.
It's massive. You have to think of a GRAU arsenal not like a small field depot with a week's worth of shells.
Right.
No, this is one of the central nervous system hubs for Russia's strategic ammunition reserves. These are huge, often Soviet-era hardened facilities. They're designed to store munitions for years of sustained conflict.
So you're not just destroying what they need for tomorrow.
Exactly. You're destroying their future strategic depth. You're forcing Russia to pull from reserves that are farther away, harder to move, which makes their whole supply pipeline much more vulnerable.
And it drives up their costs, I imagine?
Dramatically.
Huh?
So, okay, hitting Naya disrupts the fight months from now. That was target one.
What was the second major target?
The second was a major oil facility in Lipetsk Oblast. And these strikes, they weren't random. They happened early that morning around 6:35 a.m. alongside other strikes on oil facilities across several regions.
So a coordinated wave attack.
A deliberate, orchestrated wave. They're hitting military logistics and economic output at the same time.
This level of coordination, it confirms what a lot of sources have been pointing to. This isn't random. It's a highly methodical, sustained strategy.
It is.
And that brings us to the mind behind it. Our sources link this to a commander known only as Charlie and his unit. What's their role?
Charlie commands the first separate unmanned system center. This unit, it used to be the 14th Regiment of Unmanned Aerial Systems, and they are, without a doubt, the vanguard of this entire campaign.
The vanguard?
The sources attribute, get this, 80 to 90% of all deep strikes inside Russia to this single unit.
80 to 90%. So they're the engine driving this whole thing. What's the mindset here? What is Commander Charlie's philosophy?
It's intensely deliberate, almost like chess. Charlie emphasizes they never strike randomly. Every single target is tied to a specific long-term task defined by senior military commanders.
And they have a name for it.
They do. They've dubbed this whole approach Operation Spider's Web. The goal isn't just to create, spectacular explosions for the news. It's to systematically suffocate Russia's war effort.
By targeting the bottlenecks, logistics, finance.
Exactly. And for a strategy this big to work, you need high-level backing, right?
Yeah.
The sources suggest that's exactly what's happened. Well, the expansion of this campaign lines up perfectly with recent high-level changes in Ukraine's security leadership. You have Kara becoming acting SBU head, Mayuk focusing on asymmetric ops, Budanov moving to the president's office.
It all signals tighter executive control.
Tighter control, better synchronization means Operation Spider's Web has the institutional weight and, crucially, the resources it needs to operate at this scale.
So let's trace the web. It seems to have unfolded in distinct waves. Wave 1 was clearly about tackling the ammunition problem.
Precisely. The first goal was to neutralize Russia's artillery advantage by going after the GRAU arsenal system. But again, not just the field depots.
The strategic reserves.
The strategic reserves and the key supply chains that move all those munitions. Charlie himself confirmed his unit was involved in one of the biggest past attacks on these reserves. You hit these deep rear hubs, you force Russia to constantly recalculate, relocate, and expose their supply lines.
Okay, so once that disruption was underway, the strategy pivoted. Wave 2, degrading enemy aviation.
And this shows brilliant timing. That wave peaked with a series of combined strikes in August of 2024. They hit multiple air bases: Kalino, Savazleka, Borsoglebsk, and Baltimore.
And what was so brilliant about the timing?
These attacks happened right in the middle of Ukraine's offensive in the Kursk region. So just when Russia needed its air power most to counter the ground attack.
Its bases were in chaos.
Exactly. It caused immediate disorientation, forced them into a rapid logistical nightmare. So the strikes weren't just kinetic, they were a massive force multiplier for the guys on the ground.
Which brings us to the current campaign, Wave 3, attacking the oil industry. Our sources keep calling this Russia's Achilles heel.
This is where the long-term economic damage really starts to bite. The campaign ramped up all through 2025, and November saw more attacks on refineries than any month before it.
And why is it so effective?
Because oil facilities are, well, they're vast, they're complex, and they're way less protected than a military base. They're fragile. A single hit on a critical point, like a hydrocracking tower, can cripple an entire plant for months.
And the real long-term damage comes from the sanctions, right? How does that make these strikes so uniquely devastating?
The sanctions are the true force multiplier here. See, to repair these refineries, you need highly specialized equipment. We're talking massive heat exchangers, high-pressure pumps, things that rely on proprietary tech almost entirely monopolized by Western countries.
Things Russia can no longer buy.
They can't. They can't just 3D print a 50-meter hydrocracking reactor. So it guarantees long-term degradation of their processing capacity, and it hammers their export revenue. It maximizes the economic pain.
That's a key distinction. Now, they also tried targeting Shahid production, but sources say that was more of a challenge.
It was, and it shows how this spider's web has to adapt. Russia defended those assembly sites pretty quickly. Plus, the plants themselves, many are these huge old Soviet facilities. You'd need 100 drones just to damage one workshop.
So not an efficient use of resources.
Not at all. The conclusion they reached was that it's much more effective to hit the component supply chains feeding the factories. Though, you have to note, Russia is still pretty quick to find workarounds with partners like China. It's a constant cat-and-mouse game.
This whole conversation really comes down to the technological arms race, which is just fascinating. What are the key Ukrainian tech leaps driving these deep strikes?
We can point to 3 specific innovations from the sources. First, the Shum 20 engine.
Shum 20.
It's a new engine designed with much better thrust and fuel efficiency. And this isn't a small upgrade. This is what pushes their effective range to 1,200 kilometers reliably. It also has better shielding against electronic warfare.
1,200 kilometers. So targets that were safe before are now very much in play. But how does it deal with the jamming?
Well, the improved engine helps, but the second innovation is the real killer app here: AI terminal homing.
AI home.
Instead of just relying on jammed GPS or GLONASS for the final attack, the drone uses onboard image recognition. It compares what its camera sees to, say, satellite blueprints of the target. Once it locks onto the shape of the building, jamming becomes irrelevant. It's flying to a picture, not a coordinate.
That is a massive advantage. And the third element
is tactical. It's about how they're deployed. The SBU's Alpha unit uses truck-launched drone swarms.
Swarms.
They launch dozens at once. The goal is saturation. You overwhelm the regional air defenses. A system like the Pantsir S-1 is great against 1 or 2 drones, but it just can't handle 30 coming from different directions at the same time.
But Russia isn't just taking these hits. They're innovating their own very novel countermeasures.
Oh, absolutely. It's a rapid offense-defense cycle. They've reportedly modified some of their cheap Shahid drones by mounting small, front-facing anti-aircraft missile systems on them, man-pads.
So they're turning drones into anti-aircraft platforms.
Essentially, yes. They're turning a slow, cheap drone into an expendable air defense system to go after Ukrainian fighter jets and helicopters. They're likely using Verba systems, which have a range of about 6 kilometers.
A drone trying to shoot down a plane? So what's the Ukrainian countermeasure?
It's classic asymmetric thinking. Ukraine developed specialized interceptor drones designed to hunt these modified Shahids. The key weakness is that the Russian missile is front-facing. The Shahid is blind from behind.
So the interceptors just sneak up on them.
They exploit the blind spot and neutralize them from the rear. It's an incredibly high-stakes game of cat and mouse being played out in the sky.
Looking at the broader context, then, this is really shifting from a battlefield war to an economic one. The goal is to maximize the economic cost for Russia.
And the numbers are just staggering. Our sources, citing CIA estimates, say that targeting these refineries is costing the Russian economy something like $75 million per day,
75 million a day.
every single day. In lost revenue, repairs. You can see how that sustained pressure creates a massive two-front problem for them.
And yet, despite that strain, the Russian government seems to be digging in for a long war.
Total mobilization. The sources show their draft budget for 2026 commits around 38% of all planned spending to defense and security. That's a state reorienting its entire budget onto a war footing. It signals they intend to just absorb these hits no matter the cost.
And we have to talk about the information war side of this, how the Kremlin is spinning the narrative.
Well, Russia consistently claims its own long-range strikes only hit military targets, even as we see civilian infrastructure hit constantly. I mean, the scale is sobering. In 2025 alone, Russia launched over 54,000 drones and nearly 2,000 missiles at Ukraine.
And they use specific incidents to justify more attacks.
Exactly. You get something like the Corley incident in occupied Kherson. Russian officials screamed that Ukraine targeted civilians, while Ukrainian sources report they actually hit a gathering of Russian soldiers and occupation officials. Russia immediately uses that claim to call for intensifying their own strikes.
It's a predictable cycle. But looking forward, where does this escalation go in 2026?
The future is about capacity. It's about scaling up. And Commander Charlie, he made a very bold prediction. He believes a night when 1,000 Ukrainian drones attack Russia will happen quite soon in 2026.
1,000 drones in one night.
That prediction suggests Ukraine is rapidly approaching a similar capacity for mass drone deployment as Russia, which would fundamentally change the strategic equation. It puts every Russian asset at risk.
A staggering thought.
And if we bring this all back to the spider's web, it shows the war is being defined less by frontline advances and more by this high-tech, long-range attrition campaign, the internal tech race, and the systematic targeting of logistics deep inside Russia.
Yeah.
That's what's determining the future of this conflict.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, think about this. Given the success of targeting Russia's oil industry, which relies on specialized Western equipment that's now sanctioned, how quickly can countries like China really compensate for that? How do you replace that critical high-tech infrastructure needed to keep Russia's war machine running? That dependency is the strategic cliffhanger that's going to define the next year.
You've been listening to Defense Report,
where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry. Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.